Chisme Café. Y estamos muy felices que están
Todos
están aquí. I thought I had it.
Buenas tardes todos. I know we're recording this in the afternoon, but we are actually traveling and we didn't want to record in the car this shot. So
yeah, we went to a couple different ski resorts on the eastern side of Wisconsin. So we went to Little Switzerland. And then today we went to Nordic ski area. And out of the two, I would say Nordic was better. Just especially like snow quality. Little Switz, I think it's warmer over there, so it was almost like little pellets. And then it had rained. And it was like slushy, snowy, icy, weird mix. So
yeah, it was interesting week with rain and snow. So it was like particles of ice. Definitely not very enjoyable to ride. But
I think the jumps, like the park was good because there was some powder on the first jump.
Because they artificially made the snow on top of that, so there was
a little bit. So that was like the one thing that we enjoyed. Today we rode park a little bit before we left, and those jumps were very, very big. So I think if you were like a park rider, they would probably like Nordic better than Switz.
Yeah, but the reason we were down in that area was to go and see one of our friends. So that's the reason we were down there. So
any announcements this week, Christian?
I do have one. Steve Halverson did not do the challenge I had last week. He said that good luck, I'm not doing it. So Steve, if you're listening to this, and Laura, please make sure that he talks to someone random.
Oh, I was like, what is the challenge?
Yes.
I gotta write those down.
Steve Halverson, I'm calling you out, so please do that. But announcements, nothing. We are going to Utah, Idaho in 2 weeks, so we're excited about that. But that brings me into the cheesemate of this week. It's been pretty hectic, actually. There's been really good stuff. But we're going to start it off with, if you guys know Usain Bolt, 100 and 200 meter gold medal Olympic champion, actually had $12.7 million stolen from his bank accounts. So right now...
Were they investment or bank accounts?
Investments, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So there is some details saying that someone at the place that he had his investments in was doing some corrupted things. So they're figuring it out, but he is currently $12.7 million less of his net worth. So not a good situation.
Make sure you are going with credible people with your investments. That's the lesson there. On a brighter note, I'm not sure if they're opening other locations, but I saw that In-N-Out, usually all on the West Coast, is opening a store in Franklin, Tennessee. So they are migrating east.
So In-N-Out, if you guys haven't been there, I'm hoping a lot of people have, but it's out west. It's a burger chain. Definitely a good place to get a solid burger. Their menu's really small, but their food's really good. Yeah,
and it's generally pretty cheap, I think. Now the next place that I need to migrate east is Dutch Bros. So
if you guys are ever out west, for sure, if you see a Dutch Bros, stop by.
It's definitely a superior chain coffee place. Like, I'm not gonna compare it to any like little more boutique-y, I don't know if that's the right word, but like smaller coffee stores, shops. But in the world of chain, it's much better than Caribou and much better than Starbucks.
And that, definitely check it out if you have Dutch Bros anywhere in your area. Definitely really well. The other cheese that I have is that this week I asked a couple of my friends, a lot of people, how they remember their left and right. So I was reading an article, and it's, I don't want to say if it's 10, 20%, 30% of people use a mechanism to remember their left and rights. So I personally, when I think of left and right, when someone asks me your left or right, so I write with my right hand. So that's how I remember. I did ask Shane Vogt, Brandon Fritz, Kayla Uppis. They don't use them. Oh, Kayla Warner, yeah.
I was gonna come at you on that one.
Keep forgetting. But they all just know. Like, it's just a natural instinct. Steve Halverson also, but he just doesn't count right now. But they all use a natural instinct. But there's other people that use the left method. So if it has an L, that's their left hand. And then I did ask some people that were in the medical field how they remember. So my little brother, who is working to be a nurse, he says he remembers because he reads from left to right. And then it's just the opposite when he's talking to a patient or examining a patient. And another person that works in the hospital, Steve's wife, she remembers the L, and it's just the opposite. So it is definitely a mechanism that people do use, and it's really interesting how that works out.
So I do a really weird one. So I grew up doing gymnastics. I'm a righty. So it would, like, I step with my left leg, kick with my right leg, and then I would, like, cartwheel, or I'm sure if any gymnasts understand, you would know, like, step kick. So you always kick with your dominant side. So whenever I really have to think about it, I'm like, okay, step, kick, and then I'm like, okay, this is my right hand.
So it is, it's definitely very interesting. For example, but that people just don't, it's not as easy as people think.
And I think it's like only, I think the max would be like 30% don't need a mechanism to remember. You said the opposite. So I think it's like 70% of people or whatever need a mechanism, and then the rest don't need one.
Maybe. I don't remember what
I don't know what it is, but maybe we'll update this next episode. We're not prepared.
But yeah, that was definitely, and then they just went into, just because the medical field is it's a very necessity that you know your left and rights, because there has been situations where they mark the wrong leg and they do surgery, like a full knee surgery on the wrong leg. So it's the reason the article was up is just because it was in the medical field, and there's doctors doing surgeries on the wrong leg. I know nowadays they do mark them left and right so they don't mess up, just because it's not as easy as people think just to remember your left and right.
Right. And then moving on from that, you may know it is Chinese New Year. And I came across an article about your zodiac animal, and they go on years. So we did Christian and my birth years, and if you were born in 1994, you were a dog.
Represent.
And they will likely enjoy a pleasant year with significant advancements in career and finances. But dogs remind themselves that they need to be humble, listen to others, especially friends and people they trust. So you're going to have a great year, but make sure to listen to people. And then if you were born in 97, you are an ox. And we will enjoy an exciting year with travel. With the travel star and the fortune star shining over them. So they'll find new opportunities and their finances will reach a new level. They'll probably travel more for work and personal reasons, but since they're traveling and working more, they need to be aware of their health. So make sure you are balancing all of the things, but if the Chinese New Year zodiac signs hold true, 97 and 94, people who were born in those years, will have a great years.
Speaking of having a good year and travel, I'm assuming a lot of people have seen the prices of eggs. So that brings me into my next achievement. So if you live by the Mexican border, it is definitely illegal to transport eggs across into the United States. There is a $10,000 fine if they find you transporting eggs.
And that's from the Mexican government?
No, it's from the United States government.
But we need eggs.
Yeah, but it's still, there's a process into importing and exporting things, so it's just against the law to import illegally.
I got you.
So I know the price of eggs are ridiculous, there was a bird flu that went through and killed a lot of chickens. The reason that's why we're seeing a higher increase in eggs in the United States. We're a large consumer of eggs, but there is people trying to import them because there is a price gain if you do import them.
Right.
So
just like anything.
I mean, just to put the retrospect, there is another country kind of having the same situations, but instead of eggs, their currency in onions. So if you're from the Philippines, the price of onions is skyrocketed. It outprices your protein. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
reason like a pound is like $12, right? Yeah.
$12 a pound of onions, red onions to be exact. So actually getting onions into
and they are
very
the
expensive.
Largest consumers.
Yes, Philippines is one of the largest consumers of onions, which is didn't know that, but every dish that they make uses onions,
which makes sense.
So, but their government is really importing. They're working on importing a bunch of onions into the country to level out the playing field on prices. What ended up happening there is that they had a bad crop year. And due to having a bad crop year, the government didn't think they would need to import onions. And this is the repercussions of what's going on. And that's why the price of onions in the Philippines is just as ridiculous as the eggs in the United States.
Gotcha.
So
interesting.
But that brings us into the actual main topic of
traveling and hotels. How to pick a hotel, what to do if all of the hotels are just not great, and maybe like what to look for, and maybe like what we look for in hotels. So you can start off because you are the hotel king nowadays.
Yeah, so because of my job, I do travel a lot. I get to stay in a lot of hotels. We do have a budget in my company to stay in between hotels. You can definitely stay. There's very expensive hotels. I want to say Hilton's, $150, $200 nights. So I have stayed in, expensive hotels and cheap hotels.
But your budget for your company is less than $100.
Yes. So that brings into where to start. So when I started, I just stayed whatever I could find for a price. But then you start realizing I was staying in a lot of hotels. So you might as well get some perks out of it. So there's two things I'm going to talk about. So I have a Capital One Savers card, which it gives me promotional percent back points, cash back on certain hotels in certain areas.
And it's always revolving. So like sometimes they'll have like a Priceline deal or an Expedia deal, or maybe it'll just be a random hotel like a Hilton.
Exactly. So what I do is currently I use Priceline. Since the more times I stay in Priceline, you get into a better bracket of member. I'm currently like a gold member, but I'm trying to get to platinum because you get better deals. But the rule of thumb is to check your credit card. Second part, use a platform that you want to use. So that includes Expedia, Priceline,
and then you can always
Booking.com.
Yeah, Booking is a good one if you just want to like find a deal, but it doesn't really give you like points or anything, I don't think. But another thing to consider is signing up for like a Choice Hotels or the Wyndham Points program, because then you can use those in tandem like a Priceline or Expedia, and then the other hotel specific point system, so you can work to deals or free hotel room faster.
So what Morgan's saying, so then I use my credit card, so I get cash back, and then I use Priceline, which gives me a better rate. And then thirdly, when I stay at a Wyndham, which is majority of the hotels in the Midwest area where I've seen, so then I get a kickback. So you're basically triple dipping with using a credit card with points at the hotel from Priceline, and then Wyndham points, which if you build up enough points, they give you a day free that you can use to stay, when I'm not working, because I wouldn't use it for a day of work because I get reimbursed from my company.
Right. So, I know when you started, you hadn't really found the good hotels. Like in Mankato, you're there every other week. You go up to Long Prairie, Minnesota every once in a while. And those are really the main areas that you stay
down in Green
in.
Bay, depending on where I'm at, or if I have different businesses. But I stay a lot in Mankato, up in the Long Prairie area, which is in the Alexandria area. If people don't know where it's at, there's really nothing there. But when you're looking at hotels, so I'm going to see some garbage hotels and some, very nice hotels. And, I like to just check them out and see what all the talk is to see if the review actually holds up. So when I look at a hotel, I check the reviews. And
make sure there's not bed bugs.
Exactly. So if they've seen
cockroaches.
If they've noticed that within the last 6 months, right? If a review has been posted in the last 6 months and it says that, then definitely I'm not going to stay there just because bed bugs are nasty and I'm not trying to see a cockroach. So then after I've seen that it's passed the review test, so I've seen that it's decent, then I check out price to see if it's within my budget. If it's in with my budget and it checks all my other point systems, then I'll definitely book it.
And so do you look at like the pictures a lot?
Yes, so definitely. So
because I know that's something that I do when we're booking hotels, but like I don't know what your process is for work.
Yeah, so pictures I do, but sometimes they're hit or miss. So I actually leave a lot of Google reviews. So if you are on Google, you can definitely follow me. I do leave a boatload of reviews. But I do, give pictures up to date when I stay there, just because some of those photos, some people suck at taking photos. Basically, that's what it comes down to, and some people take great photos. So you got to take the photos with a grain of salt. And sometimes the photos are so old in the sense that they don't update them, or people haven't updated new photos.
Oh, right.
That you're looking,
remodeled or something.
And you're looking at stuff that's, you're thinking this is what's going in, and then you go out and check it out, and it's definitely old.
It could be worse or better. I don't think you've ever gotten one that's better. But...
No, it's definitely worse.
So, okay, so pictures, yes. Do you look for a hotel specifically with breakfast?
Yeah, so I definitely look at, I think anybody, if you're looking at it, so they advertise free Wi-Fi, which is if you're not offering free Wi-Fi at a hotel, I don't know how you're even in business, but definitely check out the breakfast. So the breakfast is a hit or miss, because we've stayed at places where they say there's a continental breakfast.
Yeah.
It's a little bag of like...
just like the host, like almost like... They buy a box of like the Hostess little like cupcakes or something, or the muffins, and they just like put them out. Yeah, so, but if you see pictures that it's actually breakfast, or you see a review that someone says, they have waffles, they have eggs, bacon, but I stay there because, the breakfast is the best way to start your day. And then in my budget, they're already paying for the hotel, so might as well stay at a place that's providing breakfast. Okay, so anything else you look for during work? No. When you book for work? No, just basically make sure that it has breakfast, clean place. I usually try to check for a gym, but most places say exercise room, and it's a treadmill. So one treadmill. So it's a hit or miss on the exercise room. So that's kind of what I look for. Where is like high level overview of the worst hotel you stayed at for work? I'm gonna call them out because they annoyed me. I stayed in Little Falls, Minnesota, and I stayed at a American Inn. And the reason they were so terrible was because I showed up. The dude gave me a room that was already dirty, so I had to go and ask for another room. Their Wi-Fi didn't work even after I got their password. They double charged me. And then they double charged me, and that's kind of what became a hassle. They wouldn't reimburse me the money that I've already paid for a hotel. So that was probably the worst experience, just on customer service and just kind of the overall hotel. You stayed at some that like smell like milk. Yeah, and this one just took the cherry on the top, because just based on customer service, and just the service was terrible. Which, if you look at the Google review, I said that I'd rather have stayed in my car than stay at that place again. So. If you're in Little Falls, definitely don't stay there. But in sense of dirtiness, there's a hotel in Mankato that I stayed in that if they would have kept everything clean, if everything was clean, it's a decent stay. But it looks like their garbage up front was never taken out for 3 days. It looks like people haven't swept, mopped. Bathroom had mold. So mold. There's definitely... that's probably just in the cleanliness, one of the dirtiest places I've stayed.
But since I've gotten better rewards, I stay at literally one hotel in Mankato now, and it's the American Inn right by one of the stadiums.
And they have good muffins.
Yeah, and they have.
That's the reason why he stays.
One of the best breakfasts I've been around. So that's why I'm at, and we've stayed. Yeah, I've stayed at really places I would never look again. And if people ask me what the review is on there, I just tell them look somewhere else.
So let's transition into how we choose hotels really quick for when we stay places. Pretty much we do everything the same, but I'm normally the one that's booking it or finding it. So I'll usually find like 1 or 2, maybe 3, and I'll give Christian the option of them. But it's definitely like look through the photos. Not that it's bad, but I usually look at the ones that are like more updated but are still within our price range. We generally don't like to spend over like $125 a night for a hotel room, just because that ends up being like $150 with taxes. Yeah. But if worse comes to worse and there's no like cheap hotels, then we'll just have to find what is the best of the cheapest.
So most affordable ones that are within the price range and are decent, because
right.
In rule of thumb, if it's too good to be true,
just probably like just
probably gonna be gross.
So definitely like look at the reviews. I always try to get free breakfast. And then if you're traveling in like bigger cities, make sure they have free parking. Sometimes they don't have free parking. So those are just some of the things that I look for when I'm booking a hotel for us. But like I mentioned, we like to stay under like 125. So let's talk about, you can share tips of like when we're looking for a hotel and there's no good hotels and they're all either really expensive or they're all really like, the reviews are like iffy. So how would you go about like approaching it?
So that's definitely a good question. What I do is I just pick something in the middle. If I'm on business trip, I'll just tell my boss the reason I stayed at this one because the other ones look sketchy, and it's understandable. But yeah, in that situation, I just pick something in the middle, even if it's above my range. There's an explanation to why. When we're doing it as a couple, then I think we just end up eating it and just going to the most, like one of the most expensive, the one that is fairly priced.
Right, like his standards versus like work or like us two is a little bit higher, I would say. Yeah. So this last time we were being cheap and we didn't want to spend extra. It was when we went to the UP and went snowboarding, and we decided to go to... Just so
a heads up, so there's only 3 hotels in that town.
Right.
And then there's every other hotel is from the ski resorts for an hour and a half. So you're adding hour and a half drive time just to get there or to stay in the town.
And you were driving like an hour and a half extra.
Yep.
So like you wake up and then you have to drive an hour and a half to the ski resort and then an hour and a half back. That's just a lot.
Yep.
So we chose the one that was like 5 minutes away from one of the ski resorts and then like 11 minutes away. And it was the best of the ones that were like under $300 for the night because we booked really late. And it was not great. And just really like old and like dingy, and there wasn't like a good quality blanket, so we legitimately like froze the first night. We had like a sheet and we had to share it. So we went and bought blankets the next day, so we had actual blankets to use. And the worst part was I was the first one to shower, and I like looked down and the whole shower curtain was just like black mold. And after that, I was just not well.
Yeah, so so the guy that was running it, so this was a weird spot because they didn't have an actual person at the desk. It was over,
like a kiosk.
It was kiosk over, I don't know where they were at, but they were the ones checking you in. But luckily they keep a guy there that kind of just does the bare minimum, just cleans and updates. And, we just switched out the shower curtain, but yeah, it was definitely disgusting. He did let us know that they just switched over ownership and the new owner is really trying to bring it back up. But there's things like that you check in. If you go into your hotel room, first thing to do is
check for bed bugs.
Lift up the bed. Lift up the bed and lift up the sheet and see if there's any bed bugs, if any bugs, because that's what you're going to see first.
Right.
And then second thing is go into the shower and see if any of that's been cleaned up, replaced, or if it's dirty, because they'll replace it for you, and it's just easier to replace it than to look at it again.
Right. And I mean, if they're unlike a lot of hotels, like, unless they're a really crappy hotel, they're not going to just tell you, like, oh, deal with it. They're going to fix it in some sort of way, whether it's they give you a different room or they just switch out the shower curtain or whatever. But moving on from the worst hotels to the best hotels we've ever stayed in. Where, and what hotel do you think the best one was? Based on, like, just the room, the breakfast, location.
Are you talking? So when I stayed for a company is when the company put us up in downtown Green Bay. It was an old revamped hotel. It was just super cool just because they redid an old hotel, updated it, super lavish. That's probably one of the best places I've stayed on the work side. When we stayed together, I think, and Eduardo will agree on this one, is the one when we stayed in Honduras. I think we stayed in a Hilton.
I think we stayed in a Hilton, yeah.
Yep, so Hilton, and the breakfast was amazing. So you had plátanos fritos, you had tortillas de harina, you had beans.
Fresh fruit. It was just A1.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best hotels that we stayed at, just based on breakfast. The environment was clean.
And I don't know if it's kind of like McDonald's in other countries where those nicer hotels just do, like, Americans, you're going to have American breakfast when you go to Hilton. If it's just like they have just different breakfast menus, but I'm telling you, it was the best breakfast. And it wasn't like downtown San Pedro Sula, but it was kind of on that.
Kind of. San Pedro Sula is a little big mess, but...
Yeah, it's wild. We sat outside and watched, like, no one get in accidents when there was, like,
all the traffic lines went down.
Of cars just going, like, back and forth and all over. They just know how to drive without traffic lights, and we would not. So, and then the other hotel probably would be one of the hotels I stayed in when I was in Costa Rica, like 5 years ago. Same thing. They had, like, an amazing breakfast. And I don't know if they just take a different standard on those nicer hotels, but the rooms were really nice, really clean, great breakfast. So yeah, pretty much just go overseas or to a different country, and you'll get a great hotel if you stay in a name brand hotel.
But yeah, no, that kind of wraps it up just on information on hotels. So, just to run it back down.
Make sure you check for cleanliness, check for bed bugs, and then use your resources.
And another quick tip, I guess I forgot, because hot water is dependent on the room.
I didn't know that.
So when I stayed in Phoenix with Eduardo, if you turn it all the way hot, it like boiled, like it burned. I think he burnt his back showering. So I thought about that. So always just make sure you check the temperature and be careful when you're showering, because sometimes it gets a little toasty. But check your credit card, see if you get any cash back for staying in certain hotels. Pick either a platform that you want to follow, Expedia, Priceline, and check the reviews. Make sure that they're up to date and you see that. Check the pictures, and book safely, and you should be doing all right with doing a little bit of those tips and tax. Yeah,
make sure it's in a good location too if you're staying in a city.
Yeah,
but other than that,
definitely that's actually very important. Make sure if you've never been in that city, kind of check around and see where you're at,
and don't be like cheap about it. Like if it was like some of the reviews said, might not be the best area, and you have to spend $100 extra for a better hotel in a better area, just pay $100 extra.
Yeah, because area is definitely because you can end up in the hood, and you can end up in spots that you don't want to be.
So.
But no, that's definitely have the opportunity to check out places, and you do your best, do your research to make sure you know where you're going, and luckily check your beds, and hopefully everything turns out all right for you.
Yeah. But other than that, we'll talk to you soon. Adios, amigos.
See you next week.